Hey guys, how's it going? I haven't uploaded in a while. I'm going to make an update video really soon to talk about everything going on with my channel, and I will talk about that stuff all then because I don't want to waste any more time talking about it in this video. So, as you probably saw in the title of this video, this is a review and analysis of inFAMOUS, which is something that I said I would do at the end of my infamous Second Son review that I made a long time ago. Soon I am also going to re-review the other inFAMOUS games because I have better formed opinions now than I did then. And then, in another video, I said that I would do it in summer of 2016. My inFAMOUS 1 and 2 reviews, I am going to redo my reviews for those games in summer of 2016. And I basically am. I actually kept a promise. Wow! So why I'm making this is my old reviews sucked. So I wanted to make one that didn't suck. If you want to watch my old review, you can. There's a link in the description. But I'm warning you, it sucks. In characters, there's Cole. He's obviously himself. And also, this video is not a part of my upcoming series, inFAMOUS In-Depth. But don't worry, that will happen sometime soon. This video is going to be filled with spoilers for the game inFAMOUS. So if you haven't played it, don't watch this. Or if you don't care about spoilers, I guess you could watch this, but I'd highly recommend playing it. Most of the people watching this video have probably played the game, though. So sorry to the 10% of my subscribers who have not played it. You also probably noticed that this video is part 1 of 4. That's because the full review is going to be over an hour long and I haven't finished it yet. It's really detailed and I wanted to talk about everything in the game. So if you don't have an attention span, well, see ya! Also, all copyrighted material used in this video is used fairly. My lawyer has asked me to read this. The fair use of copyrighted work for purposes such as criticism, comment, is not an infringement of determining whether the use made of a work is a fair use. The factors to be considered: 1. The purpose and character of the use, the amount of substantiation, and 4. The effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the. Basically, none of the copyrighted stuff that I'm using in this video is used for the purpose of people being able to see it or hear it for free. So don't give me a copyright notice! Now, wanting to improve on my past work wasn't the only inspiration behind this video. Look at these polls on which game is the best in the series! When people start ranking the games in the opposite order, I just gotta voice my opinion. Which is the only opinion, because I'm right. But in all seriousness, I feel like a lot of the inFAMOUS community doesn't really appreciate how good the first game was. I think that inFAMOUS is one of the best games of the last generation. And I think that quite a few of my subscribers would agree. But how good I think this game is does not seem to be an opinion that is widely shared by that many people. In fact, the game is pretty unpopular in comparison to the games that are widely accepted to be the best of the generation. The Last of Us, BioShock, Portal, Skyrim, The Last of Us, Mass Effect, Uncharted 2, The Last of Us, Call of Duty 4, Batman Arkham City, Dark Souls, The Last of Us, Fallout 3, The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto 5, The Last of Us, Minecraft, and The Last of Us. inFAMOUS is never on any of the best of the generation lists. Game Rant? IGN? Kotaku? Metacritic? It's number 162! Dorkly? Video Gamer? GameSpot? Oh! Wait a second. Yes! inFAMOUS 2 is on 2 of those lists, but the first game is only on 1. And don't worry, I have lots to say about inFAMOUS 2. I'm just saving it for another video. Anyways, you get my point. I think inFAMOUS is easily one of the best of the generation, though. And it's maybe not underrated. I mean, it got good reviews, but it's definitely underappreciated. So, I'm going to tell you why I think this game is a masterpiece and deserves a lot more praise than it got. I'm also going to try to solve why it wasn't more popular. So, there's lots of kinds of video games. inFAMOUS is a storytelling game and somewhat of a game. Game? Yes. Games that are games. Are you confused yet? Well, a game is something that has a set of rules that can be won or lost and played many times over and over because there's a lot of possibilities of how it can turn out. Or it's just using its mechanics to give you many possibilities for how to solve something by using systems for entertainment value. For example, tic-tac-toe, Monopoly, chess, football, and bowling. And here's some video games that are games. Pong, Space Invaders, Call of Duty, Mario, and Bloodborne. But inFAMOUS is mainly a storytelling game. Storytelling games are games that tell stories. Is your mind blown yet? Well, really what's special about storytelling games is that they can do what movies can't do. They can tell stories by having you as a player interact with it, which is why games can be very special as a storytelling medium. In inFAMOUS, I think that the story and gameplay are not only both excellent, but they also work very well together. Why? Well, here we go. Let's just start at the beginning. I'll go through the game in order and stop to talk about broader subjects as they come up. Also, even though I love this game, I'm not going to go easy on it. I'm going to nitpick it to death. Okay, so the game opens by showing us a peaceful city. There's a guy casually strolling down the sidewalk, peaceful music, green trees, and children playing in the background. Getting to see Empire City before the blast creates contrast with what it is like afterward. You only see it for a little bit like this, but it works. The game tells you to press start. You expect this to bring up the main menu like in most games, but instead there is no main menu. There's a more seamless start to the game. No menus to get in the way of storytelling. The piece instantly turns into chaos. By showing the blast from the perspective of a normal person, you understand how scary it is when you can picture yourself in that situation. A lot of people die and it sets a dark tone.
The game opens with this really awful, devastating explosion.
Oh, hi, Nate Fox. How's it going?
It knocks down 6 square blocks of Empire City.
Wait, 6 square blocks? How are these square blocks meant to be measured? Let's take a look at the map here. Yeah, looks like only one block that really blew up to me. Maybe each building counts as a block or something, so then there'd be 8 blocks. But there's also some buildings in the middle that aren't there anymore because they got totally blown up, so that's not it either. So what are you talking about, Nate Fox?
Piggly.
Activation plus 6 minutes. Pulse is 45.
You hear a sinister voice talking to Cole. Who is this? What caused the explosion? Cole wakes up in the middle of a crater and isn't dead. What? The game creates mystery right away and gives you questions that make for an interesting story. It grabs your attention immediately. It puts you right into the action with no exposition whatsoever. It shows instead of tells. It's the perfect way to start the game. You are already intrigued and want answers, but you won't get all of them until the end. The player can immediately relate to Cole because neither of us know what just happened. That's all we need. We don't need to hear his backstory. It doesn't matter. The point is, he's a nobody. He doesn't look that special, just an average person. inFAMOUS is largely about the concept of zero to hero. An ordinary, average, unimportant person suddenly becomes extraordinary, special, and the most important and influential person around. They have to make choices that affect everyone. All that with great power comes great responsibility type stuff. inFAMOUS is based around putting you in the shoes of this person and testing how you would use your superpowers, to help others or to help yourself.
The phrase that we always talked about was zero to hero. You want to be this guy who's incredibly low status at the beginning of the game, and you want to be either famous or infamous at the end.
Cole is in the center of a fiery crater. How did he survive, especially in the middle of the explosion? The game is creating more questions. Did Cole cause the explosion? Is the player responsible because they pressed start? When you press start, you didn't expect that to happen. Just like when Cole opened his package. Oh god, that didn't sound right. Just like when Cole was told to open the package, he didn't either. The game teaches you the controls naturally. Instead of having an artificial feeling tutorial, you learn to do the basic things you'll be doing in the game just by doing them. It makes sense with the story and doesn't take you out of the experience. All of the tutorials are like this. It also detects if you want your camera inverted by how you naturally just use the stick to look up. It makes for a seamless experience where you don't have to go into a menu to break the immersion. This also includes setting the best difficulty for you based on how well you play in the first few missions. When we see Cole for the first time, he is badly injured. You play as a weak and damaged character, which makes you feel even more powerful later on in the game when you're shooting lightning everywhere. Simply walking down a path and avoiding explosions helps you get into how the game feels before throwing all the hard stuff at you. There's not much to the gameplay right away, but that's okay. We get the basics down. You get a call from Zeke, who you don't know, but Cole does. You get introduced to perhaps the best character in the game. And just like with the other stuff, it feels natural and adds to your sense of immersion. So then Cole gets electrocuted and doesn't die. What? This game introduces the fact that Cole has superpowers in a natural and believable way that someone would experience it if they really had superpowers. A bridge you'd expect to go across gets destroyed and you must go another way. This is symbolic of everything you think you might know is wrong, just like later in the story. That's probably unintentional, but it's awesome. Cops are trying to handle the situation, but they really can't. Cole can't control his powers, so he ends up like killing a bunch of people, which once again, there's the dark tone and it's setting up for some moral uncertainty. The graphics aren't that good compared to other games of the time. Models have rough edges, textures are low resolution, the lighting makes most objects look like they're the same material, and there is no anti-aliasing. Most character animations other than Cole's normal gameplay ones are simple and feel lifeless. Also, the game's frame rate seems kind of unsteady to me. It feels like sometimes it gets as low as 20 frames per second, and sometimes, rarely, it gets like as high to 50 frames per second or something. Usually it's 30 frames, and this doesn't bother me too much or ruin my experience with the game, but sometimes it's a little jarring when the frame rate changes so much. Well, actually, the graphics are great, but they aren't very technologically impressive or good. They are artistically good. On a technical level, I think they're good enough. Once you get used to the graphics, how good they are doesn't really matter. I don't care if they're amazingly realistic. That's not the most important thing in games. And Sucker Punch knows that.
You know, this is a business and it's also creating art, but I think the elusive quantity here, more than anything, is just making good, entertaining video games. That the game doesn't become just a tech demo and it doesn't become just beautiful looking but not fun to play.
So I don't really think that better graphics or better lighting or better scripts or setups are going to get people more dialed into the narrative. I mean, I hope so, but what I really hope is that people get more dialed into the visceral experience of being that character.
Artistically, the graphics are great, and that's what I care about. They add atmosphere and fit perfectly with everything going on. It makes for a realistic, grounded feel to the world. Sound design is amazing most of the time. That includes music and voice acting. And the voice acting and dialogue are great. They move the plot along perfectly, enhancing the characters, the emotion, and tone of the story.
Oh! I just saw this hellacious explosion! What the hell was that?
I blew up the gas station.
What? Just cause you can't drive, man, doesn't mean no one else wants to. We could've used that gas.
Well, like you wouldn't have done the same thing.
Touché, Capitan.
The game also has a lot of glitches that never got patched. I kinda wish Sucker Punch had an extra week to take care of these minor annoyances. Most of them aren't game-breaking, but they are immersion-breaking. Quite a few of them simultaneously give you a good laugh, though. So, let's look at a lot of them right now.
You'll never control it, Cole.
Anyways, after the opening of the game, there's our first comic cutscene. Comic cutscenes are basically there because the graphics aren't that good, and that actually works to the game's benefit. The style has more emotion and impact than seeing it in the game's engine would. And the style is awesome. It gives the game a gritty comic book,
in a graphic novel sense.
I mean graphic novel feel. These scenes are beautifully drawn and animated, and are a great way to tell parts of the story where gameplay would be boring. This first comic cutscene gives you some exposition and skips over the 2 weeks after the blast to keep the story interesting. It sets up that Empire City has basically become post-apocalyptic. In just 2 weeks, society has broken down and become overrun by sickness and crime. The government realistically helps as little and as late as they can. People are in peril, and it's a terrible situation. This sets a dark, realistic tone, which helps you take choices in the game more seriously. Everything in the game is believable, except the superpowers.
We are asking a critical thing of our players and our viewers, which is to believe that someone could get electrically superpowered. And that's kind of the gateway to the whole game.
It's a believable character in believable human situations, except for that you've got this kick-ass supernatural power, and you get to choose how to use it.
It's a good science fiction action premise. It asks the question, if people could have superpowers in the real world, what would happen? That's what sets it apart from other superhero fiction in my mind. That's what makes it unique.
We knew we were doing superhero, but I don't think we wanted to do it in kind of super traditional superhero way. Like, the first thing we'd have to tell people is, no, he doesn't wear tights or anything like that. It's like, what if it's a regular person who would get superpowers?
Infamous is a clever title. It's obviously meant to be 2 words combined, infamous and famous. It tells you the game is about choosing between good and evil just by reading the title. So, now that the game has officially begun, it starts establishing its characters and setting. I've already talked about Cole some, so let's talk about him first. Cole. Cole. No offense to anyone named Cole, but that's one of the most boring names ever, which totally fits his character of being an unimportant person who got superpowers. But what is Cole like as a character? He's very, well, plain. Parkour, bike currying, and Zeke's roof give him a kind of crafty, nifty feel, and he's also kind of sarcastic.
You have to kill them. All of them. Promise me. I'll do what I can.
But that's it. He has almost no characteristics. When a character, especially the main character, has no characteristics, that's usually a really bad thing. But it's not in this case. Why? Well, like I said before, Cole is meant to be an average, boring person. He's basically a blank slate at the start. This is so that as a player, Cole is less of his own character and more of you. This helps you feel like you have superpowers, and you get to choose how to use them. By the end of the game, Cole becomes either a good guy or a bad guy. He gets characteristics based on your decisions. He becomes the character you would be if you had superpowers.
In the first game, we wanted to give you that sense of personally going through an origin story.
I basically said Cole's only characteristic is sarcasm. It's usually a way that he vents his emotional pain.
Oh yeah, that's the smell I know and love.
It works really well as a way to bring emotions out of a character that is very basic. One thing that might be considered a flaw of the game is, as a player, superpowers are fun, right? But Cole sees them as a burden most of the time. I think this is fine though, because it makes the game more realistic and thus immersive. Cole isn't really optimistic, he's usually pessimistic, but he keeps a level head and acts like a real person.
Real characters that have real problems. Peter Parker has to make rent. Bruce Banner has to actually deal with being a fugitive. And Tony Stark, he's an alcoholic, and that's the type of character that, Cole is. We feel that people just related to him on a level that even we didn't expect.
Now, I did say a lot of animations in the game feel lifeless, but I really like Cole's gameplay animations, and one thing that I really like is Cole's idle animations. They actually make him feel more lifelike.